of COVID-19, the best available evidence indicates if children become infected, they are far less likely to suffer severe symptoms. At the same time, the harms attributed to closed schools on the social, emotional, and behavioral health, economic well-being, and academic achievement of children in both the short and long term are well known and significant. Further, the lack of in-person educational options disproportionately harms low-income and minority students and those living with disabilities. These students are far less likely to have access to private instruction and care, and far more likely to rely on the key school-supported resources like food programs, special education services, counseling, after-school programs, and many others to meet their developmental needs. So our goal has been very simple all along, is to bring all of our students safely back to school as soon and as often as possible. Now, we get a lot of feedback, as we should. We solicit feedback. We beg people to participate in the process. I respond to Let's Talk communications every day, as does other members of our staff. And we're getting a healthy diet of very good feedback and information and legitimate, thoughtful questions. A lot of folks respond, when are we going to bring the middle and high school kids in? And I say the same thing over and over again, and we'll keep saying it. We're going to do it as soon as we can safely do it. I promise. So tonight, we're going to talk a lot about all the 3 areas that we have mentioned from July till now, every time we're together, and in all of our communications with our staff, with our constituents in the community, the 3 obstacles that we face in more traditional school. Obstacle number 1 is health concerns, health mitigation to this virus. Secondly, scheduling concerns. Scheduling around the requirements of safety is a challenge. Not insurmountable, but a challenge. And thirdly, staffing concerns. There is no education in any community without teachers and all the staff that it takes to make this thing happen effectively. So we're going to talk about that, and we always want to be reminded that our people are our most important asset. So we're going to protect and keep in the forefront the safety and well-being of our students and staff. These are numbers. You've seen this chart multiple times now. We publish it every time we come together. These are just sheer numbers. I won't read them to you. You can glance at them. They're also always available on the VDH website where we pull this information daily. In addition to the front-facing page on VDH, and I encourage folks to look at that as you are curious about the spread of COVID around the peninsula. There is a rear-facing page that only the health departments and their staff can access. So in addition to this public information, we, the Peninsula Superintendents, meet with the local Peninsula Health Division team every Thursday at 3 o'clock in a Zoom meeting, and where we're able to ask very deep and thoughtful questions about our planning process. So we have access to these medical experts as they monitor the disease on their side, and then share with us this information that helps us make much more informed decisions as we chip away at trying to plan bringing more students back to school safely. I will note that we had stayed with about 76 cases of COVID in the city of Poquoson for some time, and then over the last 3 or 4 weeks, we've seen a jump of about 13 cases, ending up at about right at 89 cases. Again, not something to be overly alarmed about, but something to monitor and watch closely. This is cases per 100,000, and we report on this so it levels the playing field. A small city like Poquoson in comparison to Hampton or much larger areas. are the points that the Peninsula Health Division, under the guidance of the Virginia Health Department, has encouraged us to consider. One being that you don't want to just look exclusively at your locality, because a lot of our students and families live and work and transition in and out of the city of Poquoson to surrounding areas. So when we look at data, we're not just looking at the 12,000 residents of Poquoson. We also look at the folks who live in the numbers from Hampton and Newport News and James City, Williamsburg, and certainly York as our surrounding areas. And we have about 51% of our population, of our own staff, that actually live in those areas around us. We look at two primary points of data. One is called case burden. The other is called positivity rates. And those numbers we've been advised, and again, we're not medical experts, but we've been advised to watch those numbers daily and over a 14-day trend. So I won't bore you with all of these numbers tonight, but I do want you to understand that these are the numbers we watch daily and on a 14-day trend. On the peninsula, these numbers also include Hampton, even though Hampton is not considered in the Peninsula Health Division. They have their own health division, but we include Hampton numbers when we talk about these peninsula data. And we're at what's called a moderate risk of transmission right now at 8%. And you'll see that number has, on a few later slides, you'll see that number has gone up and down, fluctuated over the last 60 to 90 days. And our mean case positivity rate is a really good number right now at 2.8%. We're very happy with that. And that's been decreasing for 14 days. If you'll notice, I included the last time we reported data from the 14th, we were at 5.6, and then prior to that we were 6.6 and 7%. So that number is going down, and that's good news. We do know the Peninsula Health Division reported that we know of 2 positive cases in private schools on the peninsula, so we're watching that closely because you always are concerned about the possibility of spread. Pardon the fuzziness of this slide, but I lifted this from the VDH website, actually from the data that they provide to us from the rear-facing information on Thursdays. And you'll notice that this is a daily rate of case burden at 8.2% and 2.2%, and that was on Wednesday of last week. We won't get this data again until Thursday of this week. You'll notice the trend there. I won't read that to you as well, but you'll see the case positivity rate landing for Poquoson at 2.2 and has been decreasing for 8 days. This is brand new. You all may have seen some of this in the news. The VDH has started publishing a new pool of data that comes from the Center for Disease Control. And this data is populated over a 14-day window, so it's an average of 14 days. So you'll see different numbers in these next couple of slides, but they all speak to the same trends. You'll notice that this is the chart, and they've categorized it into 5 sections: lowest, lower, moderate, higher, and highest risk, and they're color-coded. This is as of the 14th, again, when the data was pulled last Thursday, where we land in Poquoson. This is just Poquoson data, and again, this is from the VDH website that is populated based on CDC guidelines of data. 14-day average. So you'll notice that number where we look at a daily average for case burden, which is at 8.2%. That's 65.63%. That's a 14-day average based on 100,000 population. 100,000 population. You'll notice our positivity rate is still fairly low. We look at 5% is that benchmark where it moves from low to moderate. case positivity, and we have remained below 5% for some time now, which again is very good news for us. So I could talk for a while about that, and I'm far from an expert. There's just a lot of information that we feel compelled to study and talk about and analyze as we prepare to move forward, because again, safety is our number one priority for our students, staff, and their families. So now we're going to talk about bringing our secondary students back to school. These are the laundry list of things that our staff, and we have the smallest staff on the peninsula and one of the smallest staff anywhere around. So we say this often, I've said it since I landed here July the 1st, there's not a harder working group of people in the world in this business than in the city of Poquoson. These educators around this community I'd put up against anybody, anywhere, with the amount of high quality work they get done by wearing many hats. And I'm certain that many of them don't sleep. But again, this is the list, and I'm going to go through these next few slides quickly because I don't want anybody to throw anything at me. This could be lengthy and we could take all night, and I promise we will go through quickly. The first thing that we want to talk about is the process. Principals and your school board office employees are meeting daily to work through this process. This requires a lot of collaborative work. The division staff will continue to monitor the health data that I just shared pieces of with you. The Secondary Transition Committee, which is a new group that will meet for the first time tomorrow, made up of teachers, counselors, administrators. We've got special education professionals. Our athletic director for Poquoson High School will serve on the committee. ITRTs, school board office staff, and the president of the Poquoson Education Association. We also have a standing committee that's been around since July, the Virtual Learning Committee, whose work is to improve continually our virtual delivery. This has not been easy work. Teachers have to learn new tricks, use new tools. I know everybody wants to talk about Canvas. Canvas has been a challenge because it's a new tool we're learning. I promise, well, I believe, months from now we'll look back and say Canvas has been a good tool for us once we learn how to use it effectively. But the virtual committee's primary role is to improve our virtual delivery, because about 35% of our families chose a full virtual delivery model for at least first semester, and we've promised to allow that to be ongoing and improving throughout the year. So families who want to remain on Poquoson Online will be able to do so throughout the year. This is the key bullet right here. The timeline has not yet been established. And if you'll remember when we met last month, we presented these same tasks or similar tasks that we had to work through to transition our 4th and 5th graders in. We did not share a timeline at that point because we didn't know how long it was going to take us to do all of these things. Fortunately, we were able to do it fairly quickly, and we do plan to do that same level have that same level of commitment to do this as quickly and as effectively as possible. Currently, we have approximately 15 secondary staff members who qualify for special leave. So if you pull 15 members of our secondary staff out of the formula, we have a staffing concern. So we have to work through the ability to teach courses without certain staff members available to be in-person instruction. We anticipate some additional staff members that may apply for this leave, and again, this is federally granted leave that if a staff member qualifies, that leave is available to them. At the secondary level, we also have staff that we'll be working with the online academy for the remainder of the semester and perhaps the year. So we're going to have to staff both deliveries. We'll talk a little bit about that later. The challenge is, and this is where it gets really in the weeds, dividing or planning for pre-K through 5 is a very different process than planning for secondary school. I like to refer to it as subject-specific courses versus grade level specific courses. If you're planning to divide, for example, the 5th grade, you can do it alphabetically, which is the way we chose to do it. But if you're dividing 6, 7, 8 through 12, you have to divide by each class. So first period chemistry class has to be divided into an A group and a B group. And we'll talk a little bit about that tonight. As well, several of our middle school teachers teach on the 8th grade bell schedule as well as the 7th grade bell schedule. So they share grade level responsibilities. And lastly, but certainly not least, if a teacher is sick or needs to be out or predictably has to quarantine for possible exposure to COVID, we have very limited substitutes. So those are just challenges that we have to be aware of and plan for as we transition more students to school. Instruction. So how do you teach students who are sitting in front of you and at the same time students who are at home on their computers, because the same teacher on the secondary level will have to do both. So these are things that we have to think through and plan, because we have the same number of teachers but can only have half of the students in a particular classroom at the time. And about 35% of our families on the secondary level have chosen to be virtually instructed for the remainder of the semester of the year. This is a novel form of instruction. There's not a playbook for it. It's not being done with fidelity really anywhere. We are learning as we speak. I was speaking with one of our board members just earlier who has run into a couple of folks in his travels that are doing virtual on the hybrid on the secondary level, and has kind of picked some brains about that. We've been in contact with other school divisions who are in the planning stages of delivering hybrid instruction to secondary students. So we're collectively, as an educational community around the state and the country, learning how to do virtual delivery and in-person delivery at the same time. This is novel work. We must ensure that all the equity of instruction for students is the same for students at home and students in school. We want the quality to be the same for all of our students, regardless of the delivery system. And some of our teachers will have to continue to teach from home. Some of the teachers, back to the staffing slide, that have certain leave that prohibit them from being in front of students during this time. We're working with PE, band, chorus teachers to determine what in-person instruction looks like in those hands-on, very participatory kinds of classes. We want to make sure that's high quality, and we continue to offer the arts. Scheduling. I mentioned it briefly when I got ahead of myself, but we are looking at the details of ways to accommodate the hybrid model for our delivery. And our goal is to not have schedule changes, especially in the high school. These courses are for credit. So we don't want to have a student who started with us virtually in a 4-credit class that we have to make any kind of schedule changes, because these are credits that will appear on the student's transcript and applications to college. So we want to be very intentional about how we schedule around this. This third bullet is, well, let me go back to the second bullet again. I mentioned it briefly, but the challenge will be, and one of our major challenges is how to divide each classroom on the secondary level by subject in an A group and a B group? How do you reduce the number of students who will be in a space on our campus at any given time to comply with the CDC and VDH guidelines of 6-foot distancing? That third bullet is our second biggest challenge, because we have some of our classrooms are older and very small, and when we've been in there, and we even have several dowels that measure 6 feet, and we've been around and moved the desk every possible way to try to find a way to maximize the space in there while keeping students 6 feet apart. And what that means for us is most of our classrooms, that number is around 12. Some even less than that. We have some classrooms where it's as few as 6. Fortunately, our middle school modular units, our trailers, are larger, and some of those will hold up to 17, 18 students. So these are all the gory details of our planning process that we're involved in right now as we plan next steps. Lastly, and we talk about this often, many of you know, several of our high school students, over 100, attend New Horizons programs that from Governor's School to CTE programs to special ed programs, and we have to marry our schedule to their schedules and work individually with each one of these schedules to make sure that we don't take any opportunities away from students who are enrolled in New Horizons. We have technology needs. Fortunately, we'll talk a little bit about that tonight. We have been awarded significant money as part of CARES Act funding to purchase some new tech tools. I was sharing with a few board members earlier tonight that we have some new high-tech cameras on the way, and that will help us to prepare our delivery of hybrid instruction, where we have students in front of us and being broadcast distantly. At the same time, we have to check and see if our network can handle it. We've upgraded our bandwidth significantly. I think it's over 2 gigabytes, and we're using around 700 to 800 megabytes of bandwidth daily, which means we have the capability to do more, and we're excited about that. But these are things we have to prepare for and be ready, because the last thing we want to do is launch and then not be able to deliver. We have to practice. Where are we going to place the cameras? How are teachers going to deliver this and then evaluate its success? And then finally, how will our communication work? And we're going to talk more about that as we go through. Special education, students with special needs. Every individual education plan will need to be revisited, and you can see the numbers there. I won't read them to you, but we have significant numbers. These are meetings that must take place to make sure that all of those students' needs are met and prepared for as we transition from from virtual learning to a hybrid model. So all of that has to happen in the coming weeks. As well, and I won't get into the details of this, but there's an important December 1 special ed headcount that matters for funding, and so IEPs can't be changed during that window. So we have to have a significant portion of this work done outside of that window where this count takes place. Nothing really effective happens in public education or any kind of education without high quality professional learning. That's where our teachers learn how to do what they do and do it well. So we have a list of things that our teachers are going to have to learn to do differently over the next several weeks while they're teaching. Those people around me have heard me make this expression that I learned from my father. He said, "Artie, you're always trying to build the boat, paint it, and sail it all in the same day." And I've been accused of that. I move a little too fast, and folks around me have to say, "Back up, tilt it back up, slow down." But some of this is what we're trying to do. We have to make sure that our staff, while they're teaching school, learn how to do this next step differently. And we need to practice. We've talked a lot about that, health and safety. One of the tools that we use now, and any of you who have pre-K through 5th grade are well aware, and you get a text every morning at about 6:32. That's when mine comes in, and you answer some questions about what, your own personal health, and that qualifies you to come to school or work. And we have to then grow that model to another group of our students and make sure that that is effective, and we're prepared to welcome those students to school, and the screenings, which is required by the VDH protocols, happens efficiently. We have to develop training videos for our new students to be on campus. How to walk down the hall, how to wear your mask, how to wash your hands. It all sounds simple, but it's all very, very important and part of the requirements that we have in order to safely transition kids to school. We have to respond to our teacher concerns about transmission, whereas our younger learners, our young scholars, are less susceptible. Some of our teachers, especially teachers with pre-existing conditions, may be more susceptible. So we have to be sensitive to that and very focused on the needs of our employees. That last is a selfless plug. I need a nurse at the middle school, so if anybody wants to apply for that job, we'd love to have you. Transportation. We're talking about transporting more students to campus. Now, these are 77 passenger buses generally, is that right, Steve? And we can put only half of those numbers on there to physically distance our students safely to school, which requires us to have additional planning in how we transport students to and from school safely. We have to adjust and manage the drop-off and pick-up sites. And we have extraordinary cleaning. After every load of students is transported, we then spray a high-tech sanitation chemical on every seat and up and down every aisle before we bring in another cohort of students on that bus. So these are extraordinary measures that take time and energy, and the planning is significant. Food services, we have to feed students in classrooms, and our primary principal and elementary principal can tell you how all of that works. It's happening very, very efficiently, but there's planning in that, and now we have to plan that in another school environment, and some of those environments are trailers with ramps and the environment, rain and hope not snow, transporting food in and out of classrooms to feed students safely and distanced. Food services. Other considerations, childcare. As you know, our teachers who are currently in our buildings teaching remotely have been able to bring their own children in that environment. They're safe and secure in their parents' classroom while they deliver remote instruction. The teachers who are teaching in person, we've offered a childcare program to help this challenge for our teachers who are teaching in person in the primary and elementary school. Now we have to expand that and grow that. And it's currently taking place in the high school cafeteria, which we will not have available when we bring high school students in. So we have to find other spaces to continue to offer childcare to our staff, a growing number of our staff. We are going to conduct, one of the next steps is conduct a survey so that we can start preparing for next semester, because we're moving pretty quickly, to see if we need to plan more students second semester who may want to transition over from the Poquoson online model to the continuum now that we're transitioning more kids back. So we have to plan for all of that at the same time. It doesn't make sense for us to plan for one opening and then turn around and replan and reshuffle that deck for second semester. So that planning is ongoing as well. Just some ideas. You may have been reading some of the other planning stages from around us. York County, for example, is talking about transitioning when they phase in their secondary students. They're talking about 6th and 9th graders to be their first cohorts of groups to come in on a hybrid schedule. That's one option that we're talking about. There's a possibility of combining 6th and 7th graders and then 8th and 9th. There's some logic in all of that. As you know, 6th and 7th graders are housed on the elementary school campus, and the 8th graders are housed on the high school campus at this time. And as well, many 8th graders take 9th grade courses like algebra. So it makes sense to combine those schedules. So these are just details in our planning that it's important for our constituents to understand. And then lastly, but certainly not least, maybe most importantly, we have to communicate this process once we get close to our families so they can make necessary arrangements for child care and transportation and all these other things for their individual family needs. So these are the primary processes. I won't read this from Dr. Fauci, but what he says I agree with. We need to get kids back in school. And every expert you've heard from says it, even the ones who are charged with protecting us from COVID and investigating the risk of that. They all agree, we all agree, kids need to be in school. It's the best place for them to be. I tell people all the time, I've been in this business for 30 years. I've been in school my whole life. My parents made me go to kindergarten, and I've been in school since, and I'm old. I love school. I don't know anything but school. And when people say to me, why are you not bringing the kids in school? I say, we're going to, as soon as we can safely do it, because school is the best place for kids. It's healthy. We take care of them. We love them. We take care of their social emotional needs. We laugh with them. We cry with them. We make them feel like this is their second home. And so we want kids in school, but we've got to do it safely. Questions, comments? I know, it's a lot of information. I'm sorry. Every time I get ready to do this, Dr. Fox and I say, okay, let's try to do it in 10 slides. Then, well, okay, how about 15 slides? I'm sorry, a lot of information.
Yeah. Freeman has a question.
Freeman.
I had a quick question about the live streaming. So basically, you're putting a video camera in the classroom. Are there any legalities with like filming children?
No, and we've checked that out. One of the things that we have to be careful about is if we are broadcasting to the general public something that is going on in a classroom, we have to be very careful about that. And there's FERPA laws that protect that. And we even have a document that all of our parents sign allowing us to share that information publicly or not. And but in a classroom, that virtual delivery is considered the classroom. So what's going on in there is the virtual classroom space and perfectly appropriate. Now, there's some training that has to go on. We certainly, in the same way as in a classroom, we do want to be sensitive to folks' needs and concerns about their own personal learning. So that's part of the training that has to want to educate our staff and how to do that effectively. But it's been advised by attorneys and all the folks that look at it that the virtual classroom, which is what this would be, extends wherever that virtual classroom extends, and it's allowed to be engaged just like in the space inside the building. But good question. And that's one of the questions that a lot of school divisions have been wrestling with. How do you handle the delivery? Every school division has had some bumps in the road with that, things that they've seen. I read an article this morning where a grandmother was having a stroke in the middle of a virtual class, and the teacher called 911 from the virtual class for the grandmother at home who was needing medical emergency. So it's just interesting that our new environment extends into the home, our classrooms. Good point, good question. Other questions?
Anybody else? Thank you very much, Mr. Tillett. I appreciate that, sir. Very lots of obstacles to overcome, and I know y'all are working almost around the clock to get all those. Financial update with Ms. Woodruff.
Good evening, Chairman Carter and members of the school board. For the finance report this evening, I want to start with a quick review of the CARES funding. When it gets up, hang on. Right, here we go. All right, since our last meeting, we have been allocated additional CARES funding. We were awarded $92,776 through a competitive grant process by the state under the Governor's Emergency Education Relief, or GEAR, and Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief, or ESSER, set-aside funds. We also were just allocated $370,000 through the state's Coronavirus Relief Fund, or CRF. And the City Council also just allocated an additional $26,449, which brings the total so far from the city of $112,449. Along with the previous state allocation of $55,000, we have now been allocated over $630,000, which is a tremendous amount of money. We also have an additional request of $160,000 that the City Council will consider on Monday evening to help fund a PMS gym project, which Mr. Tillett will discuss in more detail later this evening. Uses of this CARES funding have included PPE, student technology and hotspot devices, cameras and streaming technology for virtual teaching, health screening app, touchless faucets and flush valves for restrooms, food service delivery carts, cleaning supplies, and sprayers. We are very appreciative of this funding, which has allowed us to better prepare our schools during this pandemic. Now I want to switch gears to the impact aid, which is something that we normally work on to collect data in October. Impact aid is one of the federal funding sources that we include in our budget. As you know, Impact Aid is a U.S. Department of Education program that provides financial assistance to local school divisions. PCPS receives basic support payments for federally connected students, which are those students whose parents or legal guardians are active duty military or work on federal property. Impact Aid funding is distributed based on the percentage of a school division's federally connected population. And based on last year's survey, PCPS had 590 federally connected students, which was about 28% of our total school population. Active duty military accounts for about 51% of these students. We are required to compile information and report annually by January to support funding for the following fiscal year. Therefore, in order to determine eligibility for students enrolled in our schools, an annual Impact Aid survey form must be completed. This year, because we're virtual, the survey form will be completed using the parent portal, which is the same method that we've been using for other forms already this year. The survey will be based on employment as of October 28th, and information will be sent home to families about this survey on that date. Impact Aid does require that a separate form be completed for each student, so when parents are in Parent Portal, they'll just toggle between their connected students. This form should be completed and as soon as possible, but no later than November 6th. And we really appreciate everyone taking the time to complete these forms to assist in our effort to secure this federal funding for our schools. And that concludes my report.
Questions there? Thank you, Ms. Woodruff. Next up, operations update with Mr. Pappas.
Good evening, School Board, Chairman Carter, Superintendent Tillett. Report. We, as you know, most people do have insurance. We do too, and our insurance company offers us the opportunity annually to request grants. And we just received 3 grants, which is about half of the money we're eligible for. I'm putting together another grant request. One was for non-slip paint. If you've been out to the trailer area at the elementary school, we decided to put non-slip paint on all the stair treads as well as the numerous ramps that are out there. We have added a stop arm, a rear stop arm to a bus that we bought, and that will help us. The goal is to indicate to people who are driving one way or the other to please stop. And then we've also added an optional set of lights that you'll see here in a second. This is a picture of one of the access points. Obviously, it's the one closest to the front of the school. And you can see the blacktop here. If I know how to use this, right there. This is the blacktop to make an easy transition for somebody, students both with and without mobility issues. This is a ramp, and there's the non-slip surface. And then we've done that at each and every one of our access points. So here is a typical bus when you buy it. And you notice it just has one stop arm that comes out. And we added a second to, again, help drivers realize that we're in the process of loading or unloading. And this is the high-tech lights that we just bought. And I can tell you that in the evening, and especially in the morning when we're picking up students, you cannot not know that something is happening, okay? Because I'm tired of cars driving past buses. And, you know, people talk about cameras. All they do is record the travesty. This tells you something is going on. And if it doesn't connect, then we need to just remove your license, in my opinion. Food service update. We bought numerous carts because of COVID. This one here is at the elementary school. This is a breakfast, actually. And then this is the means by which we serve food during COVID. There's some delicious pizza there in case anybody wants some. But what we do is we bring the cart to the classroom. The cart serves as a barrier between the student and the staff. And then the teachers are doing an incredible job. They actually have students get up individually. They come, I think there's a picture, you can see a child here, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I didn't put that picture in. But the child comes up, and then the food is transferred to them, and there is no touching. The students don't touch the different food, and they just get what they're going to receive. And then the modernization plan for the school at the PMS. This is the project timeline. And they have now completed 95% of the drawings. We're in the last 5%. We've reviewed, it's like the New York City telephone book of specifications that we're reviewing. And critical dates, November 8th, advertised for bids. Pre-bid conference, December 15th, we're opening the bids. January 19th, the school board will meet, we'll have gone through, we'll award a contract. October 22nd, substantial completion, and then we will move all the furniture and whatnot back into the schools so that on January 3rd of 2023, students will come into the middle school. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Any questions? What's a phone?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's called a specification. It's a specification book, and it's like 3 reams of paper. And it's got everything from the size and threads of different screws to, we have to, so.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. And instructional update, Dr. Fox?
Good evening, Chairman Carter, Vice Chair Sheeler, board members, and Mr. Tillett. Unfortunately, I don't have any blinking lights for you tonight, so sorry. I did want to give you guys just a quick update on RUVNA because we've used it a couple of times. We wanted to share that information with the board and show you how we're using it each day in the schools. So it sends a text message to the student's parent or staff member each day. The questions that we're using are derived from the CDC screener. And it does rely, RUVNA does rely on parents and staff members to reply honestly to the series of questions. And so we need people to continue to do that. So if you're not feeling well or you have a temperature, we need you to be honest about that. Schools and offices are still continuing to conduct on-site temperature screenings. That's just another part of our health and safety plan. So last night, we did send to all of the board members, you got a RUVNA text.
See who was compliant.
As a test. We wanted you guys to experience this in real time. And so this is what a screening report looks like for our principals and their staff members every day when they're going through it.
Why was
And what
Gary's
you'll,
red?
I'm sorry.
Why was Gary's red?
Gary's is red, Mr. Carr, Dr.
yeah.
Carr's red because
No,
he was
they-
denied entry.
Right, and there were a couple of symptoms, and I'm like, I wonder what would happen if
Yeah.
I just checked one.
Yeah,
So I
so I'll
checked
show
one,
you.
and
Yeah. Yeah, so that's why he's red. You'll see that where I'm listed, it's gray. It's because I didn't respond. They're still waiting for me to respond. And then Mr. Freeman and Ms. Helsel, you guys responded and were cleared, so you can see their response there. And what we can do each day is we can screen and pull out what we want. So when kids are coming in, the administrators and their teams are pulling through. They're looking for the folks that are denied and or unanswered. We're going to catch those unanswered folks when they come in either on the bus. We'll do a quick, discrete screening with those students. Or if they're coming through the parent line, we can just ask the parents those questions very quickly. We can enter them into the system and then move on from that. And so again, you'll see here, this is where we filtered it for what we call verified screening. So these are folks who are okay to come to work or school, and that's what the system will show you as completed and verified. These are denied entry. So we got a couple folks who need to get themselves together. And then what we can do, what is interesting here, because we do want to check on these folks, either whether they're students or staff members who have been denied, we can look and see why they were denied. So for instance, I picked Miss Reimers because she really needs some help. She has multiple symptoms, but she also checked that she's traveled to an area where there's a high rate of COVID transmission. So we would call Ms. Reimers and check on her. If it's a student, the school nurse would call and check and make sure everybody's okay. And then, like I said, you're still waiting for me to respond. So that would be somebody we would catch in the screening process when they arrived, either to their work site or to the school building. And we just want to take a moment to thank all of the parents and the staff members for their assistance with this. We're having an incredibly high percentage of people responding, and that's awesome. We need that because that's, again, it's a part of our safety plan. It's helping everybody to feel a little bit better about what we're doing when we bring students into the building. So we just want to thank everybody for that. As we begin to bring more students in, parents will receive an informational email with details because they will start to get those text messages in the morning. So we have a process for that. We'll send out that information prior to it, and then work with parents if the numbers aren't correct and things like that. The other update I have for you tonight, we're going to give you more of a demonstration next month of Canvas, but we just wanted to give you a quick update that we're continuing to refine our deployment of Canvas based on teacher, student, and parent feedback. We appreciate that feedback. We're using it and turning things around as quickly as we can. The teachers are being very responsive. When they have suggestions, we have a process for that as well. Our virtual learning committees are meeting, as Mr. Tillett shared earlier. Principals are having ongoing conversations with teachers to evaluate the instructional content that's being delivered, as well as the number of assignments that are being delivered. We're getting feedback that there's too many and not enough. So in the gamut of all of that. Our teachers, our counselors, our technology staff, our school administrators, all of them stand ready to support students who may be experiencing issues, whether those are instructionally related academic issues, whether they're Canvas or work management, or if they even just need some organizational support. All of our staff are here and willing to support you. Just call us and tell us that you need some help. And as I shared, next month we'll give you an update and walk through some specific things related to Canvas. We are very excited tonight to introduce to you what we're calling the PCPS Parent Cyber Cafe. And thank you to Mrs. Emily Forrest, who's our new Professional Learning and Digital Communications Administrator, and Mrs. Kim Montalvo, our Instructional Technology and Instructional Data Administrator. We have very long titles in Poquoson. For developing this first series of our Cyber Cafe sessions. These will be virtual sessions that will run on Thursday evenings from about 7 to 7:30. And we're going to just present some information to parents and then allow time for questions afterwards. The first session will be later this month, and it will be on tips on navigating Canvas. And we will email out and post on all of our social media networks information about that. So look for that information coming, and we hope that you'll join us for these informational sessions. And then finally tonight, our high school and our elementary virtual open house activities did begin today. The primary and the middle school held their activities last week, so parents receive an email from the principal with details and information on how to view the welcome video from the superintendent, from school administrators and counselors, as well as information from our teachers. And parents can view this information at their convenience whenever they're ready. And that concludes my report this evening, Dr. Carter.
Very much, Dr. Fox. Does anybody have questions there?
Can I touch on a couple things? Dr. Fox, for clarification, it seems like the concerns that I get from a lot of parents in the community are hinging around the student's ability to properly upload items through Canvas. That there's some instances where students are doing it 4, 5, 6 times to the point where even parents are trying to log on to figure out what's going on. And some of our teachers have made the determination to start emailing documents, which is concerning to me, just given the volume. I'm sure it's talked about. I know it's been referenced on Let's Talk. Any insight or any feedback that we can give parents at this time about ways we're trying to better that situation for them?
Yeah, we are. We don't want things emailed because that's defeating the purpose of what a learning management system is
Correct.
for. But what we do need are those specific instances when a situation like that occurs. So if parents have or students have that occurring, what would be really, really helpful is to email our help desk or the teacher with the specific assignment and the time. Because then we can go in there. These instances are happening in weird situations, so we're trying to figure out what it is on the background that's causing it. But what's very helpful for us is that we can then backtrace where that's happening, but we need the specific instance. So if a teacher or a parent or student, just email the teacher or the help desk with that information, and that'll help us problem solve it.
One additional question, sorry. Ms. Reimers, for example, in her health screening, given the cough and the fever, what is the return to school policy, or do we have one currently? And if you could kind of touch on that, like if she got a false positive for potential for COVID, is it a 14-day waiting period? What does that look like to just kind of reassure parents that we're...
Well, it's complicated and it's different depending on where you land. But for the bottom line is if anybody has a fever, there's a 24-hour waiting period with that. You have to be fever-free without medication to be able to return. In a situation like what Mrs. Reimers listed, we are encouraging parents to have their child checked out by a healthcare professional. At that point, the healthcare professional is going to make the determination of whether a flu test, a strep test, a COVID test is necessary. If that student or staff member is COVID tested, there's a series of things that will go into place. We'll contact trace who has been around that student or staff member, and those people will be quarantined until that test comes back. So there's a whole series of different things. If somebody tests positive, there's a whole series of steps that we take for that. We do have outlined information on our FAQs, on our reopening of school plan, and we have pages of if-then scenarios of what we're doing. We are then contacting the people that are in the immediate area of someone if they test positive or they're suspected for testing positive, and that's how our process rolls out. So the best thing to do is if you're symptomatic or having anything is check with your doctor. They're going to make the decision about whether or not you get tested. We just then need to know that information so that we can move forward with our procedures. Does that answer your question?
Yes. And finally, for Ravna, who gets those data points? Is the administration? Is it their teacher? Who has access to that material?
The principals have
Okay.
that information, and they're working with a team each morning who can see those screenings. We're out with iPads, and they're moving through that information. But it goes, we have everybody divided into groups based on the school, and the principal is the one that's monitoring that. I'm checking it, for instance, for our central office staff. Ms. Ryer is checking it for our student services staff. So we have different people assigned to check it each morning to make sure everybody's where they need to be.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. Good questions. Anybody else? Thank you, Dr. Falk. Next, public comment. Do we have any public comment, Ms. Reimer?
No, sir.
Thank you. And Ms. Sheila, would you walk us through the consent agenda, please?
Sure. The consent agenda includes the approval of the minutes of September's regular meeting, the approval of financial reports, the approval of personnel action, and the authorization to change appropriation and to accept and expend funds in accordance with the request in the board packet.
Thank you, ma'am. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Ms. Reimers?
Aye.
Mr. Ingram?
Aye.
Mr. Jordan?
Aye.
Mrs. Hessel?
Aye.
Vice Chair Sheeler?
Aye.
Chairman Carter?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. Other matters for consideration. Up first is consideration approval of PCPS capital improvement plan for fiscal year 22 through fiscal year 26. Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Typically, and you all are well aware of this, having done it, many of you, for many years, about this time of year, you're asked to approve the capital improvement plan. And this is not different in Poquoson than it is most anywhere. Capital improvement is generally made up of large ticket items that what boards typically do, because there's never enough money, is we kick that can down the road year after year after year in hopes that you're going to have a windfall year and be able to really, really chip away at some of these items. And I learned that's certainly the way it is in Poquoson. But with that said, so this year we were planning to come to you with a similar plan that you've approved year after year, looking out over 5 years with extensions of big ticket items like school buses and chillers and major expenditures. And with that said, this year is an anomaly. So we're going to be talking about something, and again, I've been at this a long time, and I've never done this, to move something forward instead of back. So we're excited tonight to ask you to amend your capital improvement plan to some projects that were out in 2024 that we might get to in 2024 if the stars all lined up, forward to 2022. Now, why that's important is this plan is for 2022 start date and goes out through beyond 2026. So what we're asking tonight is that you consider moving 2 big items that were in 2026 up to 2022 totaling hundreds of thousands of dollars. And we're going to try to walk you through why that's possible, and we think very important for you to consider. First, let me just say that in your previous capital improvement plan, has been there for some time, is to add an HVAC system to your high school gymnasium. The building was built without air conditioning. When I arrived in Poquoson in June, my realtor said to me, first thing, you're the superintendent, can you put some air conditioning in that gymnasium out there? My kid plays volleyball and it's too hot in August to play volleyball in the gym. What we're talking about tonight is really not about the comfort of students playing volleyball or basketball, although that's important. We're talking about an opportunity tonight to improve the air quality in a time that we have a virus circulating in our world. And we would probably not feel comfortable using that gymnasium while COVID is still around with any children in it for any length of time without air circulation. There's some really good science out there about the importance of high quality air circulation. Mr. Pappas has reported the upgrades to our HVAC systems in our other buildings to get it to 13 MERV compliance, which screens out the vast majority of these aerosols. This project is expensive, and it's something that probably we wouldn't get to, and maybe not even in 2024 when that time comes. So I'm going to just leave that for a minute and let you know that's something we want you to consider moving forward, and then we're going to talk in a minute about why we think that's important. Secondly, also in 2024 is your turf field. Now, when I got to Poquoson, I was surprised and amazed that a community this size has an AstroTurf field. That's a bragging rights that anybody who loves football, like I do, I quickly called my folks back home and said, nah. This is incredible, and what a wonderful tribute to a community that cares about kids and wants to do special things for young people. This field is amazing. The problem is it's old. It was laid out in 2008, I believe. So it's, by the time this plan is considered for 2022, it'll be 14 years old. The lifespan's about 8 to 10 years, and we've patched and repatched, and we've used all the patchwork available. So if we patch it again, it's going to be not match. It'll be a discoloration. So we think this is another, although very expensive, project that we should move up to 2022. Now, this is not something we're going to tackle now. This is just two projects we've moved up. We've had conversations with the city manager and his staff, and we believe this is smart to move these two projects up for consideration on your capital improvement plan. Now, that's where they exist. You see they were back here at 2024. They've been moved up. Other than that, the plan is pretty much what you've seen over the last several years. So the first thing we're going to ask you to do tonight is approve that capital improvement plan with those two items moved forward. So table that thought for just a moment. That'll be your, that's our request for your next order of business. That has to happen first. Once you approve that as the governing body of the schools, I'm taking it to City Council on Monday night, along with the support of your city manager, to ask for some shared responsibility and shared investment from our CARES money that Tara spoke to you about a few minutes ago. This Coronavirus Relief Fund has been awarded to school divisions all over the state and municipalities over a period of time, starting over the summer. And this money came in fairly large increments. And I have to say, and I don't say this lightly, City Council in Poquoson has been extremely generous to Poquoson City Public Schools in sharing this money. They received pots of money from the COVID Relief Fund, as did the schools, and City Council has been very generous with us, sharing their pots of money. Some divisions, some counties and cities have done that, some have not. But Poquoson has, and it's made this conversation we're having tonight possible. The other piece that's on your agenda for you to consider tonight is purchase of a brand new school bus. And you will be familiar with this, and you've looked at this over the years. Our bus fleet is aging. I think we have some buses that are somewhere around 27, 28 years old, and the average bus life is about 15 years. So we've, with a lot of hard work from Steve and his team, and we've kept these buses rolling. And in your capital plan, every year there's the replacement of a bus. COVID fund has allowed us the opportunity to buy a new bus now. And so that's an item on your agenda that you'll look at next. And I put it all together in this presentation because we're sharing this pot of money that some the city will provide and some we have come directly to us by ADM, average daily membership portion of this $200 million plus fund that we benefit in part of, as does the city. So because we're sharing these funds, it's made it possible for us to purchase immediately large ticket items, one being a new school bus, and secondly, partnering with the city on adding HVAC to our gymnasium. The bus was also another very fortunate break for us. We were not the only school division who received money. Every school division did. And when it was determined pretty quickly that because of social distancing on buses, this qualifies as one of the expenditures to use the COVID funds. So Steve quickly got a hold of his bus rep, and we were able to acquire a brand new gas bus that we will be able to purchase with your approval tonight. And we're very excited about that. That's something that we'll receive quickly. And this is in addition to a bus we already had budgeted that has arrived today. Yes, I knew it was en route. So this is exciting news for Poquoson. 2 new buses in our fleet with an aging fleet. So what we're asking you to do tonight is first approve at your pleasure the capital improvement plan that moves up 2 projects, the turf field and the HVAC system, from 2024 to next school year. Then we're going to ask you to approve the appropriations of $103,000 of COVID relief fund money to purchase the bus, and then to share another portion of that money with funds from City Council that we believe will be approved on Monday night to complete immediately the HVAC project at Poquoson High School. Something I failed to mention, the caveat to this money is it has to be spent by the 30th of December. So we have a short time frame. Mr. Pappas has communicated with the folks that we would be purchasing this HVAC system, and we believe that the project will be complete in that time frame and funds will be expended, and this will be a great opportunity for the kids and families of Poquoson to have these 2 large ticket items paid for pretty quickly out of this pot of money that again qualifies because of air quality in our gym and distancing requirements for the bus. Questions?
Thank you, sir. Let's make a motion first. I have a motion to approve and a second. All right, now does anybody have questions? Mr. Tillett?
I mean, the great thing about the gym and having graduated 18 years ago, that's been talked about for 25 years.
It's been since 1990 when I graduated.
Yeah, it's been a long-standing issue. Now, on the flip side, it was always a competitive advantage to have a hot gymnasium. So having practiced and trained in there for years, it was always a nice thing to have. As for the turf field, the turf field doesn't just impact our school system. It really impacts our community on so many levels. Our youth, sports utilize that regularly. Parks and Rec uses it for summer camps regularly. And there comes a point actually on that turf field that after a prolonged period of time, if you do not replace it properly, it actually can be a little bit of a detriment and cause injuries or further injuries to our youth. So, it's one of those things that certainly has to be done as well. So we're fortunate to have that opportunity tonight.
Anybody else?
It's a great idea to replace the field because you can't open a new school and have a raggedy.
True.
So I'm also very excited about all three projects. The one thing I will say, if I recall correctly from when we initially put the field down, it was a phased approach stadium as well. So I don't know if we can make adding that to the CIP in the future so that we can get that done.
Absolutely. We will revisit the capital improvement plan every year. So that would be a great idea once we get this approved at city council to bring that up, because that makes a lot of sense. To go ahead and add that to the capitals, get it somewhere in the next 5-year plan. Yeah, good point.
Thank you, Ms. Reimers.
Mr. Freeman.
Aye.
Mr. Ingram. Aye. Mr. Jordan. Aye. Mrs. Hessel.
Aye.
Vice Chair Sheeler.
Aye.
Chairman Carter.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. Next is authorization to superintendent to sign the purchase agreement to purchase 2019 76 passenger gasoline school bus. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any questions there?
Who was the second?
I'm getting it aired. That's awesome.
All right, Ms. Reimers?
Mr. Freeman.
Aye.
Mr. Ingram.
Aye.
Mr. Jordan.
Aye.
Mrs. Hessel.
Aye.
Vice Chair Sheeler.
Aye.
Chairman Carter.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Item C, consideration approval of proclamation for school bus week, School Bus Safety Week. The average school bus transports 54 students, replacing approximately 36 family vehicles. And of course, you have the convenience and efficiency there. They're designed with safety measures, including bright color stop sign arms, cross-view mirrors, and school bus transportation employees should be recognized for their steadfast commitment to safely transporting Poquoson students, and they do an amazing job. And Mr. Pappas, we always hear each year about what a great job they do, and now we safety measures. So do I have a motion to approve the proclamation?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any comments, questions there? Ms. Reimers?
Mr. Freeman.
Aye.
Mr. Ingram.
Aye.
Mr. Jordan. Aye. Mrs. Hessel.
Aye.
Vice Chair Sheeler.
Aye.
Chairman Carter.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
And the added item from our second agenda item is item D, and that is a motion to authorize the superintendent to sign a contract with Warwick Mechanical Group for the installation of an HVAC system in the PHS gym. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And a second? Second. Any questions there?
Any idea when that process would potentially take in terms of installation?
Yeah, it will, assuming that everything passes on Monday night at city council, we'll start immediately. Mr. Pappas has already been in conversation with the installers, and we think that we're certain that we can get this done by the deadline, which is December the 30th. So we'll start immediately and should be completed by the end of December.
Anybody else? Ms. Reimers?
Mr. Freeman.
Aye.
Mr. Ingram. Aye. Mr. Jordan.
Aye.
Mrs. Hessel. Aye. Vice Chair Sheeler.
Aye.
Chairman Carter.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. Next item, communication, other matters. We will kick that off with Mr. Tillett.
No other matters, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. And our newest member, Ms. Spake. Take it away, Cassidy.
Sir, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and start with the Poquoson Primary School. Poquoson Primary School has successfully started the school year, and we are proud of our students and staff. Each day, we run 4 different schedules: Poquoson Online, Hybrid in Person, Hybrid at Home, and Preschool. Our staff have welcomed our students both in person and virtually to a new year with smiles behind their masks or even behind. Our staff is taking every precaution to keep our learning environment safe and healthy. Masks, cleaning, and distancing are part of our daily routines, and our students are doing a fantastic job adjusting to the new procedures. We look forward to a great school year. Poquoson Elementary School. The Poquoson Elementary School has successfully brought hybrid 3rd graders into school on September 8th and hybrid 4th and 5th graders into school on October 12th. Students in both virtual and in-person classes are off to a great start. Students and staff are wearing masks when they cannot maintain 6 feet of distance between. Lunch and breakfast are free for all students this year, and students are enjoying delicious meals prepared by caring hands. Students at PES have live encore classes while at school and asynchronous classes at home. At PES, art, library, and music teachers go to the classroom, but for PE, students may go to the gym for instruction. October is National Bullying Prevention Month, and it is a spirit week for the elementary school. On Monday, PES put a lid on bullying by wearing a favorite hat. Today, the theme was Sock It to Bullying, with students wearing crazy socks. Wednesday will be Unity Day, and the staff and students can wear orange. Thursday will be Back Off to Bully, and students and staff may wear their clothes backward. Finally, on Friday, we will end the week with Dreaming of a Bully-Free School, and students and staff may wear. We encourage students at home to participate also. Please be sure to wear appropriate shoes for outdoor recess. PES would like to say a big thank you to all those who have supported us in so many wonderful ways. Poquoson Middle School. Poquoson Middle School would like to thank parents and community for their support and collaboration. We value the time spent and effort put forth by students, staff, and parents as we navigate through virtual learning together. You are all doing great, and we appreciate you immensely. The social and emotional health of our students has been and remains a focus at Poquoson Middle School. In September, school counselors led school-wide lessons focused on at-home organization and self-care. This month, counselors are recognizing National Bullying Prevention Month by presenting lessons each Wednesday on including others, celebrating diversity, respecting one another, listening patiently, and sharing tasks. To conclude October, students can look forward to celebrating Red Ribbon Week, a drug awareness and prevention campaign, by participating in lessons days from October 26th to the 30th. And lastly, Poquoson High School. Despite the untraditional nature of this year, the high school is off and running for the 2020 to 2021 school year. Our new oceanography and second level of criminal justice courses are underway, and our students are actively learning across the curriculum. Our faculty continues to explore ways to engage all students in learning and are planning project-based learning experiences for students. In addition, they are helping them to navigate the Canvas learning management system. We welcomed many of our islanders for the distribution of textbooks and course materials at the end of September, and any students still need to retrieve items should contact their teachers. Our counseling department has been busy making virtual classroom visits. They have also begun conducting meetings with members of the class of 2021 for post-secondary planning, as well as holding the first of 2 college application workshops. Our SEA is working to plan virtual spirit activities, and our athletic department began conditioning workouts this week. We look forward to conducting senior and underclass pictures at the end of the month and continuing to find creative ways to engage. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cassidy. Mr. Freeman.
We had a couple community members. I want to make sure they had an opportunity. They were late coming in. I'd like to welcome Ms. Cassidy to the school board. Expecting great things. Love the point on that. Last Thursday, I was able to attend the first SEAC meeting. Advisory Committee. And Ms. Ryder did a great job. Very informative, so just letting everybody know it's good, things are all there. And as Gordon mentioned earlier, he was contacted by several community members and emails about concerns. I've been getting those as well, sure some of y'all have as well. And everything's the same. Open schools, open schools, open schools. And every one of y'all knows since July I've been saying raise the pirate flag and open schools like a Monday. And you saw today a whole list of reasons why we can't do that. So just general public, be aware, our 5-person staff is doing everything they can to get our students in school. It's just hard. Be patient. We all want the same thing.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Mr. Ingram?
Thank you. I concur with Mr. Freeman about opening schools. Ms. Cassidy, thank you for the inspirational poem. It was very positive, and I just needed at a time like this, and I'm pretty sure your fellow students positivity and your attitude. So thank you. I recently joined the Poquoson City Public page, so it's now available. Has some great information. Been seeing some positive referrals to the principal, so I thought that was pretty interesting. And also the school lunches. Anyone age 1 to 18 can go to the primary school and pick up food on Monday, and it should last the whole week for each of the number of kids that you have. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Jordan?
I've certainly talked enough this evening, but wanted to welcome Cassidy on board, and I also wanted to just kind of reiterate, we touched on it. It's unfortunate that the Teachers of the Year were not able to be represented in person, but Mrs. Yeager, a very familiar face in our school system, Ms. Farringer, Ms. Smith, and our Teacher of the Year in the division, Ms. Duvall. So just wanted to congratulate them on an outstanding accomplishment. So, thanks so much.
Thank you. Ms. Helson?
Welcome, Cassidy. I'm excited to have you with us, and I could not agree more with what you said, Mr. Freeman, about I'm anxious too. I know we all are, and great time.
Thank you. Ms. Sheila?
Yes, and welcome, Cassidy. Christy and I knew you were going to be a welcome addition to our board, and I did enjoy your thoughtful poem about 6 feet apart. It's good that you can be up and warm in a time like that when we need that. Thank you, and boy, I concur with what we really want the kids back in school. We want everybody healthy, and we're working on it.
Yes, congratulations to Ms. Yeager, Ms. Farringer, Ms. Smith, and Ms. Duvall on Teacher of the Year. That's an awesome accomplishment. Welcome, Cassidy. I look forward to working with you throughout the year. And I also like to thank City Council for their continued support and their generosity. And I mean, they're always there for us. We can always go to them, and they always do whatever they can to help us get to where we need to be. So hats off to City Council. And as far as this Parent Cyber Cafe, that's a great idea. I love that. It'll be right there so parents can some tutorials, ask questions, and I think that's going to be a hit. So that. With that, do we have any material for board review? Thank you, ma'am. Then we will adjourn. Y'all have a good night.